Obviously, this might be one of the most hotly anticipated phones of the year, but the question still remains, how does the new one stack up to the old one? Hey, it's Joshua Vergara from Android Authority. What's going on, everybody? And here's a quick look at the OnePlus 2 versus the OnePlus One. Now, the OnePlus One had a gorgeous design, and the new iteration takes it up a notch by offering similar yet improved aesthetics. The first notable difference is a home button that is added to the front that designates an area for you to be able to put your fingerprint on in order to unlock the phone easily. Now, it does seem like a button, but it's not one that you can actually press down. You could just rest your finger on there, and the fingerprint reader, even when the phone is off, will scan for fingerprints and then unlock the phone if it finds one that is registered. With the 3.5mm headset jack at the top, while the power button stays on the right side now, with the volume rocker moving over to the right side, because on the other side of the phone now we have a notification toggle which has 3 different positions for the different types of notifications. Either you get none, all, or you only get priority ones. It's a great input that really puts the OnePlus 2 in a different place compared to all the other classical button layouts that are available. And on the bottom, micro USB from the OnePlus One has been made into USB Type-C. Now, not only will this improve data speed transfers and also charging, hopefully, USB Type-C is also a reversible port, so you don't have to fiddle around getting the right position for the micro USB port like you did in the OnePlus One. This time around, USB Type-C is also going to be a new standard, and the OnePlus 2 is the first phone to provide it. Turning to the front of the phones, above the fingerprint reader and the capacitive keys for either of these phones, you will notice that both screens manage to still look great at the same exact size, 5.5 inches at 1080p resolution. No, there is no Quad HD in the OnePlus 2, which does seem like a bit of a bummer, but with its lower price, it does seem to make a little bit of sense. And especially if the battery life is going to be pretty good because of the Full HD display, we're all for it in the OnePlus 2. However, it is going to be very similar to the OnePlus One, maybe just a little bit more brightness and a little bit more saturation that I at least saw in the OnePlus 2. Now, the moment you're really all interested in, the power underneath. The Snapdragon 801 of the OnePlus One goes up against the 810 version 2.1 in the OnePlus 2. Now, the Snapdragon 801 is still a great performer, and for anyone that still has a OnePlus One, they are still quite happy with the performance they're getting from last year's flagship killer. This year's flagship killer, however, has one of the most powerful processors that are available right now, a 64-bit processor backed by the Adreno 430 and 4 gigabytes of RAM, which is awesome. Still, we do see a lot of speed from either of these phones. Perhaps the OnePlus 2 is going to have just that little inch more in terms of its smoothness and its reliability, but the OnePlus One is still holding its ground. So we do think that for daily usage, either of these phones will provide the kind of experiences that the general user will need. Now, in terms of hardware, we do have some new additions in the OnePlus 2, namely those notification toggles and the fingerprint sensor that we already talked about, but also the phone will provide dual SIM capabilities out of the box and everywhere. So if you haven't used dual SIMs before and you think that you have a need for it, the OnePlus 2 will provide that for you. But now we're going to talk about the cameras, and though they might seem pretty identical on paper, both have 13 megapixel rear shooters, but there are some upgrades in the OnePlus 2, mainly features like optical image stabilization and the laser guided autofocus, which you can see right below the optics. Now, the placement of the camera might be a little bit odd on the OnePlus 2. It's definitely something that needs some getting used to, but at the very least, when you're holding the phone, you won't have your fingers getting in the way of the lenses by any means, because the placement makes it easier to hold the phone without doing so. f2.0 aperture is still the par for the course here for the OnePlus 2, but with optical image stabilization, its low light performance should get a little bit better, and hopefully that will definitely be the case when we get our hands on a review unit and put it through its paces. Now, finally, when it comes to software, this is probably the main point of contention, because the relationship between OnePlus and Cyanogen unfortunately went sour in the time that the OnePlus One had its lifespan. But now with the OnePlus 2, Oxygen OS is the name of the game. Cyanogen is still available for the OnePlus One. If you had 11S, then you upgraded probably to 12S. And Cyanogen Mod does provide some more features like customization and some extra security features, let's say for messaging, for example, in the OnePlus One. The OnePlus 2 does not have many of these features because Oxygen OS is just about as stock Android as it can get. You do have the same look as the Google Now launcher, for example, with only a few main additions. The OnePlus One-centric additions that make it over to the OnePlus 2 include the gestures on a turned-off screen in order to get to places pretty quickly. You also have customization on the buttons, so you can use soft keys instead of the capacitive keys. And then there's the shelf, which is basically a frequency widget showing you all of the different apps that you use on a frequent basis, and also the many different contexts that you might call and text frequently. Now, if clean and simple is really what you want, Oxygen OS is definitely going to scratch that itch. But when it comes to customization and some extra features, CyanogenMod is pretty much only available for the OnePlus One now, but Oxygen OS is going to be the official one going forward. So take your pick here, and if customization is really the name of the game for the OnePlus 2, it could be possible that you can just go ahead and install another ROM on it if you so wish to. But Oxygen OS is the official, and it does get the iteration bump up that it needed, but maybe it just needs a few more extra features to really separate itself from the pack. So with all of that out of the way, can we say that the OnePlus 2 is a worthy successor to the One? Well, we could say that it is definitely the upgrade that was needed with some extra features, but until we get our review unit, we will be able to tell you even more at that point. When the OnePlus One was launched, it was mostly the specs and the price that made it amazing, and for the most part, that could be the case for the OnePlus 2. At $389 for the 64GB version, it is still a pretty good price for one of the most powerful devices you could probably get today. So keep it tuned to Android Authority for even more. A full versus will be done between these two phones once we get our hands on a review unit, including camera shootouts most likely. So make sure you keep it tuned to Android Authority for all that and even more, because we are your source for all things Android.